If they ain't cooking, I don't want it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ins and Out of the podcast. I'm your host, DT Sensei. You can follow me on all the social medias. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok. And you can also follow me on Twitter as well. So, this is a Washington Commanders episode. We're going to be talking about the offense and the defense from the Commanders' observation of what are the things they've done for this offseason and what we have seen through camp and what are the expectations we have for both sides of the ball. So today we're going to be talking about the defense. A defense that was adequate enough but wasn't good enough last year as a team went to the NFC Championship and got, to be quite honest with you, got slaughtered. So to talk about this with context, let's go ahead and look at this defensive side of the ball like this. 2020. Yes, I'm going that far back. 2020, this defensive line that had Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, and even at a guy like Tim Settle. That was considered one of the best defensive lines in football. But after that, it never materialized to consistency. Consistency was the biggest problem for this defensive line. Just doing what they're supposed to do on a consistent basis, just it didn't show up when it mattered. Chase Young is not on the team no more. Montez Sweat not on the team. Both those guys got traded literally 2 years ago. And so here we are right now. So just to talk about some of the people that have left the team on this current defensive line. The names to discuss from last year's NFC runner-ups. You have two names just to throw out there. Obviously, was Dante Fowler, the situational pass rusher who led the team to sacks regular season, and we also have everybody's fan favorite Jonathan Allen being released by the team. He is now with the Minnesota Vikings. Dante Fowler is back with the Dallas Cowboys. So, for what Washington did last year, they signed a lot of guys on one-year deals just to help shore up the floor of the team. And we see that, obviously, the things that they did, they re-signed Cleo Farrell back to the defensive line. They re-signed Sheldon Day and Jalen Holmes, who were both late additions to the team. Jalen Holmes got signed mid-season, and I think Sheldon Day was signed during training camp, and he somehow made the team. But they were both fairly well. They did very well. They did what they were supposed to do. They did their jobs. But to discuss this offseason, they have added 4 defensive linemen to the team. 4 new defensive linemen to the team. One of them is Eddie Goldman, nose tackle from the Atlanta Falcons. They added Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle for the New York Jets, former first-rounder who used to play with the 49ers under Adam Peters. You also have Dietrich Wise, defensive end, who played for the New England Patriots on those Super Bowl teams. And you also have Jacob Martin, defensive end from the Bears, a guy who was bouncing from team to team. He is also deemed for a lot of people as a new situational pass rusher, taking the spot of Dante Fowler. And then the holdovers last year, we see, of course, we mentioned Sheldon Day, we got Jalen Holmes, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, rookie last year who missed some time with injuries. You also have Deron Payne, the last remaining guy from the 2020 defensive line, and one of the many draft picks that's still surviving on this on defense. And you also have last year's second round pick in Johnny Newton. So The question should be asked: did the unit get better? I would say the unit got better in terms of size, length, should be able to have a better rotation to stop the run. But if we're talking about getting to the quarterback, I don't necessarily think they got better. But however, I don't think it is a failure for them not to get a number one pass rusher, in my opinion, this year. Because last year, this team was able to get to the quarterback um, fairly well. They were 11th in the NFL in sacks. They had 43 sacks. Now, of course, some of that came from also Frankie Louvu, which we'll also discuss that group as well. But this defensive line was, they were able to get pressure when Joe Witt and DQ had things schemed up. Now, I think the biggest thing that they improved on was helping the run defense, which was absolutely putrid. This run defense, you add Javon Kinlaw. I believe John Kinlaw is like 6'5". Eddie Goldman, he's like 6'3", but he's 320. Deron Payne's is around the 320 range. So you got some guys that can help stop the run. We also need guys to help stop the edge of the run as well. That's why you get guys like Dietrich Wise. That's where you were saying a guy like Khalil Farrell to help with the run defense. So I think the defensive line did get better by at least a smidge. They got better by a smidge. Now, obviously, people are going to be talking about who's going to be the number one guy to get the quarterback, but I think this is a pass rush by unit. This is a pass rush by group. They'll find guys that can get theirs, maybe 5 to 6 sacks, 5 to 7, in that range. I don't think it's necessarily we have to have a guy that gets 14 and a half sacks every single year. It'll be nice to do that, but I think the defensive line did get better. Now, with Allen being gone, of course, that's everybody's fan's favorite. Is Jonathan Allen better than Javon Kinlaw? I would say yes, of course, but I also see Kinlaw's versatility be added to this defense. He could play some defensive tackle. He could also play some edge to help stop the run against bigger packages such as 12 and 13 personnel that teams will be trying to use against us. So overall, I think this defense of line got him better. They got him bigger. They got him some veteran guys. Khalil Farrell coming back. Dorrance Armstrong was also a guy who was signed to a 3-year deal last year. A lot of people kind of mix on him. I thought he played fairly well until injury, and that's the biggest thing for the D line as well. A lot of the guys last year were injured. Dorrance Armstrong was injured. Khalil Farrell was injured. Javante Bean East was injured. That's what led to the signing of Holmes added on to the team. But that playoff run, Dorrance Armstrong had like 3.5 sacks in the playoffs. He was playing consistently well. He was getting to the quarterback. He was causing pressure. He was making the quarterback throw faster than what he was supposed to. So I think those guys coming back, some of the holdovers will make this defensive line better because they know what Joe Witt wants. They know what DQ wants on the defensive line. All right. The next unit that we will be discussing is the linebacker room. So the linebackers, they were probably the best unit on the defense last year with Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu as a combination. Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, I believe they had all pro years last year. I might have to go look it up. But they came to the defense and they were able to make the plays that they were able to make. Now, I think by talking about the defensive line should be better against the run, which should help Bobby Wagner be able to make the tackles that he was not able to make last year. And Frankie Louvu be able to assist him as well. But also, Frankie was used a lot to rush the quarterback. He also was second on the team with 8.5 sacks. And just thinking about some of the packages they could use for this defense, and a lot of people are going to be like, well, we want Frankie to be the linebacker next to Bobby Wagner, but here's where we talk about some of the changes. So Michael Walker was the guy they signed last year. He was more of a special teams guy. he had played in some sub packages, but he was never considered a guy that was going to be getting expanded playing time. Now, one holdover was Jordan McGee that they drafted last year, and they shifted Dominique Hampton, the rookie safety out of Washington, to the linebacker room, and they also added Kane Medrano, the rookie out of UCLA. Here's where things can be very interesting in how they function this defense, because Jordan McGee was a guy that was getting a lot, and I mean a lot of rep on the defense during the training camp. Injury kind of took him out of that during the preseason. Also, some of the majority of the training camp, so he never really got back into a rhythm. He came back like mid-season, but he was more special teams. That didn't go as well. Then Dominic Hampton, he was starting out as safety. Then they decided to put some weight on him and shift into the linebacker room. So hopefully another year in the weight room should help him be better, help him understand the assignments of a linebacker. And Kane Medrano is interesting because this is where a lot of people see him as like that sub package linebacker that can help blitzing, can help spy the quarterback, and help with coverage. But I would keep my eyes on those young linebackers, because if McGee and Medrano can step up to what everybody potentially sees in them, I can see packages where Frankie Louvu is off the edge and McGee is playing linebacker alongside Bobby Wagner. Rushing the quarterback, helping the pass rush get more better with a Frankie Louvu, Dorrance Armstrong. Just name some of the things they could do to get to the quarterback, and also play better pass defense in the middle of the field. So I think the linebacker room is quite honestly the same, but with only one new addition, and that is Kane Medrano, the rookie. So I think the linebacker room, it will still be the same, but I think the biggest X factor will be Jordan McGee. If Jordan McGee can get the same reps that he was getting preseason / training camp, and he can see the field, I think that can help the flexibility and versatility of using and moving Frankie Louvu around to help the defensive line when it comes to pressuring the quarterback. Now let's go ahead and talk about the secondary. So the secondary is probably the biggest one that has made a lot of changes. I would say. So last year the secondary, I would say the secondary in terms of talent was definitely devoid. You had Emmanuel Forbes, who got cut mid-season. You also had Derek Forrest, who didn't even see the field at all after his 2022 breakout year. So you had guys like Michael Davis. You had guys like Benjamin St. Juice playing on the outside. They were playing so badly that Mike Sanders still had to play outside to assist. So just to look at the corner room before we get to the safeties, guys that they added in the corner room, they added Jonathan Jones, cornerback from the New England Patriots, a guy who could play inside and out. You also add Keemon Seymour. He's going to be more a special teams guy. But in fact, having St. Juice leaving, having Michael Davis leave, you needed one more guy to go to the room. And they did drafted the rookie out of Ole Miss, that is Trey Amos. Trey Amos has had a spectacular minicamp and OTAs so far, so look for him to be on the outside playing with Marshawn Lattimore, who we did trade for last year. So Marshawn is also an X factor as well, because let's very face it, when we watched him play, he did not look like the guy that we traded for. But rest assured, he also wasn't healthy either. We traded for an injured player, and the deal for trading for him was more of the 2025 season than the 2024 season. But he played because it was a need, especially at the time. So now you have Marshawn Lattimore, you will have expected starter Trey Amos, and you have Mikey Sanders playing at his natural spot. And with the added depth of Jonathan Jones and I think they vastly gotten better with that group. They vastly got better in the corner room. And also, just to add, Noah Iganagami. Noah played absolutely well as a slot corner. So if we're looking at the corner room definitely got better. If we have projected starters, if Marshawn stays healthy, I think this secondary can be very great. The secondary can be great with the corners. You have Marshawn Lattimore, you have Trey Amos, uh, Mikey Sanders, Jonathan Jones, and Noah Iganagami. That is a good room of corners, I would say. It's not going to be the flashiest when you go after Marshawn Lattimore, but those guys will be able to help and assist the pass rush because playing tighter coverage can help the pass rush as well. With Frankie Louvu, with Dorrance Armstrong, Johnny Newton, Deron Payne, those guys can get to the quarterback and also the middle of the field coverage well with Bobby Wagner. So the corner room definitely improved by a lot, and the communication last year is what a lot of people don't talk about. We were one of those teams that we really did not give up a big completion like in the years past. Maybe we gave up like a 40 or 30 yarder, but we're talking about like a 70-yard bomb, an 80-yard bomb. No, none of that was last year. So this defense was able to communicate well. So with that, let's also go ahead and talk about the safety room. The safety room is definitely something interesting because they only they only added one guy in free agency, and his name is Will. His name is Will Harris. He played for the Saints. He was drafted by Detroit Lions. You lose Jeremy Chin to the Raiders for a 2-year, $16 million deal, and so your projected starters at safety, quite honestly, would be Quan Martin and Will Harris. And then you also look in the rest of the room. You have Percy Butler, holdover last year. You have Jeremy Reeves, the best special team player on the team. And then they also had Tyler Owens, a rookie last year from Texas Tech, who they love. And they also signed a couple of safeties. One of those safeties that they love in this year's draft process, undrafted rookie Robert McDaniels out of Jackson State. Now, the question I have for the safeties is actually two questions, I would say. Well, maybe three. Maybe three. Let's do the three. The third question number one will be: are we thin at safety after the starters? And I would say ideally yes, but maybe they like these guys. Maybe they love Jeremy Reeves, who's been on the team for a long time. He can play some safety. But after him, you have Tyler Owens, who they love the physical traits, but can he do what Jeremy Chin can do, and Robert McDaniels? This is guy that's a mystery but he has some of the traits that they love. Number two, is Will Harris an upgrade over Jeremy Chin? That is a question that a lot of people will have, and so we'll see during training camp. And the number one question I have is Quan Martin. Is Quan ready to take the next step in his development? He's been getting a lot of praise this year. The numbers will say that he was one of the top rated safeties against in coverage last year. He balled out in the playoffs. He balled out. He balled out with two messed up shoulders, bro. He balled out with two messed up shoulders. Um, with Quan, if he takes that next step in his development, I think we have some because he's a talented player. Who can? I think his ceiling can be a Pro Bowl safety. He can be a Pro Bowl safety in this defense. And those are the questions I have for the safety room. Now, we're saying all this to say, when we look at the entirety of this defense, we talked about the D line, we talked about the linebackers, we talk about the corners and the safety. So if we're talking about projected starters. Projected starters for the 2025 uh, defense would be Dorrance Armstrong. At one end, you have Deron Payne. At the other spot, um, I I believe they will probably have Javon Kinlaw start next to Deron Payne, but I think it'll be Javon Kinlaw slash Johnny Newton splitting responsibilities at that defensive tackle spot. Then the next end starter will be Cliff Farrell, who comes back last year. Linebackers, it's more of a 4-2-5 defense, so we're going to have Bobby Wagner, Frank Louvu. Your corners will be Marshawn Lattimore, Trey Amos, Mikey Sanders-Still, and your safeties will be Quan Martin and projected starter Will Harris. So that's the projected starters right there. What are your thoughts on this defense? Can this defense be good enough to help assist Jaden Daniels? That'll be something that we'll have to see for our eyes. For the next episode, we're going to be talking about the offense. For more episodes and stuff like this, just click and like and subscribe to the channel. It's your boy DT Sensei, and we'll catch you guys next time for the summer. Summer is here, people. We're almost here for football.
If they ain't cooking, I don't want it.